the TCL Q7 or the TCL QM8. That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video, so smack a like on this video for just getting to the point. And the point is simply put, it's going to depend on what you're watching. Not necessarily the easy answers that I'm usually able to give, so let's just dive right on in without wasting too much time. So the TCL Q7 is an interesting beast in that it has an amazing contrast ratio, as we talked about. You know, you're talking 5300 to 1 with, again, over 600,000 to 1 contrast ratio. That's ridiculous. And that makes it really hard to justify the price difference between the QM8 because either way you look at it, you're going to have deep black levels. But the biggest prospect of the QM8 is that it has deep black levels. So then it really kind of comes down to, okay, how deep do you really need your black levels before it's kind of not a big deal to you and money kind of matters more. And it gets to the point where you're just kind of like, all right, I'm going to choose either brightness or whatever the case may be. But honestly speaking, both do an incredible job. Now, the TCL QM8's biggest advantage obviously being that brightness and that it has the higher headroom by a lot, where the average peak nits is anywhere in the ballpark of over 1,000 on any given occasion, especially with bright highlights, getting well over that. Now, the unfortunate and uncomfortable part of this entire ordeal is understanding that, like, either way you go, there's going to be a compromise that you have to make. For example, I did notice that there are just some examples where TCL's quality control not necessarily being the best, and I did see that on the TCL QM8, where on the TCL Q7 I didn't run into it, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So maybe that's a factor. You know, you might have to play the return game and exchange game quite a few times before you run into one without defects, and that's also a factor to consider here. Now, another thing to consider as well when we talk about the usage or which one you would prefer is, like, are you somebody that's going to have a sound system of some sort, or do you need this to have the speakers already built in being fantastic? Because if that's the case, then the QM8 is definitely going to be your guy. It also, again, tends to be the better option in terms of clarity. It's not that the Q7 or QM7 is not fantastic, but the Q7 just lacks what the QM8 has in terms of that extra clarity. Now, from an HDR perspective, both do okay. I mean, I'm not going to say they're champions and they're just going to break the mold anytime soon. I think if you're an HDR buff, you're probably going to have to save up a little bit more and go your way of the OLED route, particularly QD OLED like the Samsung S95C very particularly if you want the best experience, but ultimately speaking, both are going to provide you a good experience. But in terms of what you should get, I mean, really, it's going to boil down to that. Now, I will say that the TCL Q7 is also not ideal if you have a bright room with a lot of reflections, because reflections are something that it definitely struggled with in my time reviewing it, where the QM8, well, yeah, it still does have it, kind of be a little bit more of a problem. The gloss screen looks a lot better than that almost matte finish screen that picks up every reflection and turns into literally like what feels like a mirror. So that's one of those things that I didn't really like the most. Now, in terms of, I think, price though, I think maybe if you're a little bit more patient, you can find something on sale. But then we'd kind of be kidding ourselves if we didn't talk about the immediate competitor, which is the Hisense brand of televisions. And everybody's been asking about the U7. Haven't reviewed that yet. We probably should get that in and start reviewing that. But the U8K, I can safely say, is like that. Like for black levels, is just every guy's dream, everybody's dream. You have to have one of those if you're like, hey, I want black levels. But counteractively, it doesn't get as bright as the TCL gets, and motion is nowhere near as smooth as what TCL offers. Now, both are going to be wonderfully smooth for motion, so it is a win either way. And I would safely say if you were going to go with the Q7 or the TCL QM8, it is a win either way you look at it, but you have to be careful and mindful of the things that you are compromising, as we mentioned, speakers and, you know, reflections and things like that, brightness, headroom. But from like the perspective of picture quality, both are going to have a good picture. And I think if that's ultimately what you're after, then it's a win either way. Now, if you have a particular use case, I know I can't answer everybody's question with a single video, so just let me know in the comments down below and I'll try to help you find or at least narrow it down a little bit more for your specific use case, and then we can see if we can get you something that will, again, fill your needs and make you guys happy with your purchase. But that being said, I want to know what you guys think of this video in the comment down below. Thanks so much for watching the #1 brand in honesty, and until your next video visit, I'll see you guys later.